creates us, sustains us, and redeems us. I told Justin I wouldn't be able to preach very well. This is one of my all-time favorite hymns, and we used to sing this with the women in Bedford, and Dwight would thump away on his piano, and there was a spirit in that ugly room, and I watched you all swaying, so be careful. This is the last Sunday before Advent starts next week. You'll know because things will be purple. And it's called the Reign of Christ, or Christ the King, as we just said many, many times over. To remind us, really to remind us, there can only be one ruler in our hearts and minds, and that is Jesus. And to turn to any other as a substitute can be problematic. Now, this is ironic this week. Has anybody been caught up in watching the Ken Burns documentary?
Yeah.
I've learned so much in that 6 hours. Wow. So here we are talking about a king, and this whole series is a struggle against the king. Anyway, we could argue, though, that every day is a day to acknowledge that Jesus is Lord of all, so why today? And these days, the notion of a king, well, it carries a lot of baggage with it, doesn't it? And I think part of the larger struggle is that we human beings, we have a hard time with authority. That, particularly that authority which really intrudes in your life and flexes its muscle. I am so grateful every day that I get up when I want. I have my coffee, which is prepared for me. I read the paper, and I don't have anybody really telling me what to do. You can tell because my hair is gray. Except my own conscience. I do have my own conscience, but there's always a mute button on that one. But in this particular political climate, I will be honest, I am struggling to accept our democratic authority. I have a hard time being disciplined and engaged in supporting some of our duly elected officials. Now, I will comply, but right now it is very painful, particularly because conversations so quickly become arguments and things get said and they're hurtful. We know, even Ken Burns reminding us, but we knew it, democracy is precious. And it's difficult to maintain, which is why Jesus kept telling his followers, be careful to whom you grant authority. As an aside, those of us who were raised in the British Commonwealth, we've experienced monarchy at some level. As a child in Montreal, our class started our school mornings with the singing of God Save the Queen. The same queen who ruled for all those decades, so maybe it worked. We had a formal photo of her in the classroom next to the Union Jack. This was before Canada adopted the Uber maple leaf. She was arrayed in all her finery and a crowny thing. She seemed remote and unapproachable. How could God, whoever that was, how could they actually draw near and save her? I had no idea who God was, how he or she could even save the queen. But the bigger question was, save her from what? Now, did she experience the harsh winters that I did? Did her skates need sharpening? Had someone forgotten to pin her mittens to her coat? If she was in so much danger, we had to sing every day from 3,000 miles away who was not doing their job. What about those big guys with the red coats and the big furry hats? What were they doing? Whew, this was too much to think about, and so my mind would wander over to when Susan and I could roller skate. But back to our scene that Luke portrays for us. Next to Jesus on the hill were two other faithful Jews who were to be crucified with him. We are told that the other two victims were bandits, bad guys, not messiahs. as one of them taunts Jesus with the same words used by the Roman soldiers and hired collaborators. Save yourself, Messiah, King of the Jews. The point Rome was making was humiliating and mocking. The other victim, however, knows Jesus is a king with a kingdom that he wants. And this is the picture that Luke paints to allow us to see just who Jesus is and to whom he ministers. Diana Butler Bass, an American theologian, has called this image of the dissenting bandit and Jesus and the believing bandit church. This is what we are. Those yearning and wishing to Jesus there, the person who knows him a little bit but wants more. We're all drawn to the same thing. But the kingship of Jesus is the polar opposite to my experience and the lived history of Jews in ancient Israel. They wanted a king with all the pomp and glory who could intimidate the enemy, bedazzle folks. But what they got were generations of kings who were corrupt, uncaring, ruthless, wielding power for their own glory. Does that sound familiar? Jesus instead is ushering in an entirely new order, a world, an order and reign and kingdom characterized by new life, hope, love, the kind of love which never wearies in extending and receiving second chances. Maybe that's what Jesus is king of, second chances. Giving us the choice to repair relationships that might need our attention, to amend our speech or our actions, or give of what we have and rejoice in God's mercy. In this reading alone, Jesus extends mercy and forgiveness to those conducting the crucifixion, to the crowds urging them on, to the bandit who sought him in paradise. The chance to step aside from the current path of misdeeds and onto the path towards God. We know we've been granted a reprieve from the choices we made, which were unwise, a chance to turn around and show up for God because God showed up for us, got our attention, and now is offering us a path forward. We know full well what we ought to do. And yet the forces, the sovereignty of the world's distractions pull us away from that true course. Micah says, remember Micah, that prophet? Micah says, what does the Lord require of you? But to do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with your God. Jesus is the King we need and want. If we can but yield to his love to rule our hearts, he can be the name above all names, glorious Lord, holy and almighty one. Yes, he can reign above us, but he reigns in love and service, not in dominion and might. None of this is easy, my friends. The world has a chokehold on us in so many levels. AI chatbot, all those programs can replicate communication, thought, but they can't replicate love and compassion. We're the only ones who can do that. Those feelings remain our domain, our kingship. Let's not waste that. Let's celebrate and sing praises to our King, the King of love, Lord of all.